All right. Well, welcome everyone for the Digital PMO webinar number 4. Do the right projects. I hope that everyone can see my screen and can hear me. Yeah, if you do, that's good. If you don't, please post a text or chat on your screen. And by the way, there's a Q&A panel that you can post your questions, comments, or feedback as you have them, and I will try to address them either during the demonstration or afterwards when we finish presenting and demoing. Right, so today we are going to talk about how we select the initiatives and approve them as projects in our organizations. How do we go about actually doing that? My name is Laith Adel. I'm a principal consultant at EPM Partners, and I will be presenting today's webinar on doing the right projects and showing you how we can use the Microsoft platform, different versions of it and different screens of it, on how do we go about making sure that the right projects are selected. The project delivery is known to be a very mature kind of type of discipline in many organizations. We've been doing project management for a very long time. However, in the recent years, we know that digitization is changing the way that we deliver projects, and that's something that PMI has basically acknowledged and shared with us in many occasions through their publications. So the digital transformation has enabled us to touch on the three actually areas in project delivery, be it a process, people, or technology. So if you start with from the process itself, digitization and artificial intelligence is enabling us to automate the process or the processes in the project delivery, be it the project governance, the standard gateways and approval processes to move a project from a staging phase to another phase or stage, or in fact any business process that interact with the overall project management process or workflow, be it a contract management, resource management, procurement management, and as we will see today, projects or initiatives prioritization and optimization. So instead of doing it via, if you like, individual files like Excel sheets and the like, now today we have the technology to enable us to do basically the right projects and select the right initiatives that deliver the maximum value to our organization. And in terms of people, the impact is obviously related to people's skills that are involved in the project delivery, from the project managers themselves to the program managers to the PMO to the business analysts, and in fact even the resources who are working on these projects. They all have to acquire technical skills in terms of using tools, whether it is to schedule timelines, update tasks, estimate costs and the alike, always now done via the technology and that is available through different types of solutions. And obviously, the technology itself has, in terms of the project delivery itself, used to be, your good old Excel and maybe Microsoft Project and P6 and so on. Now we are in I guess, an era where there are numerous number of applications that will be used to manage projects, timelines and scope, costs, risks, procurement, contract management, safety, and so on. So the applications available for us, or the technology available for us within the project delivery discipline, is definitely growing and becoming more sophisticated and in many cases more useful to the end user. Right. So look, when projects are delivered within organizations, there are two main pillars of mandates that the project delivery function of the organization, represented by its project managers, whether they are internal or external to the organization, and then its program managers and portfolio managers and its project management offices and so on. But they mainly tasked to do two main things. That, first of all, that the projects are delivered within time scope and deliver the outcomes or the outputs that are they are set to deliver. And this is what we call do projects right. So, you know, you give a project manager a project, and they will usually are given either a fixed budget, fixed scope, or if you're talking about iterative or agile, more fixed team, and then loose scope, whatever the case might be. But the end is that we are tasking an accountable person to deliver the outputs of that particular project. So that's really about the do project, and this same thing apply for a project, to a program, to a portfolio, to the entire set of the initiatives or the projects that are being delivered within the organization. It depends on the different roles of the people or the entities within one organization. So I think that's all understood, and we've been doing it for a very long time to deliver projects right, or do the projects right. But the other aspect of the project delivery mandates is do the right projects. How do we go about selecting the right initiatives, specifically when, or especially when, the demand on delivering projects, or the demand to deliver projects, is increasing all the time, with even more limited resources and constraints in terms of budget and people's availability and so on. So there's really two elements to the challenges that is related to do the right projects. First of all, the constraints that any organization will have. We don't have an infinite supply of people and money to do whatever we want to do. That's number one. But number two, and it's increasingly becoming the case, is the changes in strategies, the changes of the desired outcomes from the investments put in the organization. So, for example, you might start with a 2-year strategy, but then halfway through you might change your strategy due to the changes around the organization circumstances. So, for external factors, you know, technical changes or technology changes around it, economical changes, political changes, and so on. And these are becoming more rapid. So, having a 5 to 10 year strategy is something that is, although many organizations still do it, especially organizations that own assets, physical assets that require such long vision in terms of strategy. But the rest of the organization will probably have a shorter strategy, and even those are rapidly changing. So how do we make sure that no matter what the strategy of the organization is at any given point of time, that our investments in these projects are aligned to it, and it's giving the organization the optimal value or return in the investment of in these projects and initiatives. That's really the key point. And to do so, that kind of line of thinking really breaks down the job into 3 main things. First of all, to set up a strategic pillars and objectives, some kind of a statement that ultimately, or the desire is to have it measurable somehow. So a very simple example: increase in sales or increase in revenue by a measurable percentage, 5%, 2%, 10%, whatever the case might be. But that's a strategic objective. This year we would like to increase our revenue, maybe increase our revenue in a certain category of products or services by a certain percentage. That's a very specific and very measurable strategic objective. And obviously the challenge is, how do we then identify our strategy to a set of drivers or objectives that are measurable, that we can then track and direct, if it's not increase in sales, which is a very kind of a black and white numbers that you can track and measure. But that's a kind of a strategy challenge and discussion that is not for today's demo. So once we set up those strategic objectives, then we the other part of the equation, or the challenge here, or the process actually, is just making sure that we assess the new initiatives against this set of strategic objectives. That any new initiatives, any spend of money in a project will be then tested against those strategic objectives. And at the end, that kind of testing or that comparison between, or the ranking, if you like, of those new initiatives against the strategic objectives will enable us to prioritize the initiatives by their strategic value to the organization. Now, prioritization is the first step in actually addressing the challenge of do the right projects. But then how do we then optimally select the initiatives in any prioritized list of projects called portfolios? How do we optimally start selecting based on certain constraints of delivery of those initiatives within certain timelines, constraints of people's availability, or in fact budgets of money available for us? So that's really it in terms of do the right project. These are the three main pillars, if you'd like, within do the right projects to select the initiatives. We need to make sure that we have strategic items, pillars, objectives. We need to make sure that the new initiatives are aligned with our or measured against those strategic objectives, and then we either have the ability to prioritize and then optimize our selection of initiatives. So I'm going to start a demo using PMO 365, our own Microsoft solution that basically will show us first how do we set up a strategic objective, then how do we calculate the demand coming from a certain initiative, and then how do we go about mapping those initiatives to our strategic drivers, and then we'll end up seeing how we prioritize and optimize the selection of initiatives and portfolios. Now I will jump between a number of interfaces and user interfaces and screens, and that's again on purpose to show you different experiences and how you go about making a certain action and in the process, as for example, a business who wants to initiate a new idea, or a project manager or a BA who's calculating a risks or a cost or a timelines for a project, all the way to a portfolio manager or in fact a leadership team who's prioritizing and optimizing a selection of an initiative that is related to their organization. So you will see that this is, I guess, a PMO 365 on the Power Platform. I will switch between Power Platform and SharePoint, but the pipeline is what we call, I guess, pipeline is where the entity initiative, from our definition perspective, will live. And I'm using the term initiative on purpose because an initiative can be either evolved later on to an approved project, or in fact can be rejected before it becomes an active or in-flight project, or evolves to an entity that is not a project, a business as usual activity or something else. It doesn't make it any different from the other initiatives. So how do we go about, first of all, developing our pipeline of initiatives? Now, you might break the pipeline into things like ideas, concept, or business cases. These could be a kind of a sequential set of entities that evolve from an idea to a concept to a business case. Or you might have a different categorizations of the items in your pipeline. It does not matter, right? You can have a single entity type within your pipeline, or only business case, or only concepts. It really doesn't matter. Whether you want to have it evolves from an idea to a concept to a business case, or from an idea to a business case, and so on, it's completely up to you. And by the way, from experience, it is not one size fits all usually in an organization. A business unit or a part of the business might use ideas, the others might use concepts, the other might use both ideas and concepts. So we don't have to be very strict in terms of how we define our pipeline. Different terminologies, different processes might be introduced to different part of the business. That's absolutely fine, as long as it all falls into one place called the pipeline that can be then analyzed and prioritized on the organization level. Now, to create any of those, you can either get into the tool like this and go to one of those areas. Let's say that I start from a business case, and it's as simple as, you click new and you fill out a business case, or in fact an idea, right? And then obviously it will come up with its own governance workflow if you want it to be. You can call other business processes. For example, I want cost estimation or resource plan for it, and you can, from there, you can have a set of what we call business rule or business processes that you can call from, and that will be available within the entity itself. I don't have a list here, but In other places I will. And if, for example, on this list, say, look, I have a business case and I want a cost estimation service to be provided to my business case by the SMEs in the business. I want a risks assessment. I want a whatever, right? So it's not only just the governance, which is traditionally used to be the main workflow enabled in any project portfolio management solution, the governance of moving an entity from its inception or from its beginning to its end. Now we can call on other business processes. It's called an RPA, robotic process automation. Right, so you either come here to what I call the parent UI. If it's an idea, you go to the same place, you go idea, and you click new, and then the idea form will be displayed. Or in fact, if you don't want that, you can then use apps. You have certain apps that you can deploy to the business, you can deploy to end users, and the app, and when I use the term app, I don't just mean apps on a tablet or a mobile phone. It could be an app that is consumed on the web using a browser. So for example, one of our clients here, Australian Super, has an app for collecting ideas, right? So how do we go about collecting ideas? The first time you log in, you basically go and go through kind of a wizard or like introduction of information, and then you basically will have a number of tabs to fill out the idea, and then you save and submit the idea to your business. So either you are going to the parent interface, or you go and deploy specific apps for specific user groups to collect the ideas into your pipeline. And then the idea can evolve into a concept or a business case, what have you. So that's the first bit. This is how we collect those initiatives. If you would like to call it bottom-up ability to create or to collect the pipeline into one place. Now, so before I move on into the cost estimation, I do want to show you then how do we set up what we call strategic drivers. And again, strategic driver is nothing but an entity that you can set up. There's a number of ways doing it. You can do it via Project Online, or you can do it via platform. I'll show you both quickly. But at the end of the day, you set what we call strategic drivers. So this is a list of strategic drivers. For example, decrease safety incidents to less than 10 per year. I'll probably use this as well for the IT type of project, digitize customer end-to-end experience. So this is a less measurable, if you'd like, business objective. So obviously it will be interesting to see how we go about and measure the actual business objective. But these are simple list of business strategic objectives, including things like an ROI or an MPV. Now, to be very honest, if we talk about internal investments in the organizations, as in projects that are not run for profit, they are run just to deliver strategic advantage or strategic value to the organization. The ROI is less used, from my experience. It is somehow used, or sorry, it is used in the financial sector a bit. But outside that financial sector, if we're talking about internal projects that are invested in not to make money, usually strategic impact of things like, customer digitization experience, increased safety incidents, increased revenue, whatever the case might be, are usually the way to go. ROIs are definitely used for projects that are run to make profit. So for example, if you're a professional services business and you're bidding for a project, ROI can be one of the tools, or an MPV. But if it's not a project for profit, usually, as I said, the strategic value of that particular project will be used for the prioritization. I'll show you quickly another way of creating strategic objectives, and this is using SharePoint or using Project Online, and this is how you go about it. You go to your list of the drivers, and again, you can see the list is very similar. You can create a new one and so on. So I have a pipeline. I have a set of strategic objectives and drivers. Before I get into the assessment, how do I assess the impact of a certain initiative from the pipeline? Well, it's an idea, concept, or a business case, let's see how I calculate the demand represented by this initiative, whether it's cost, or usually it's either cost or resources. So it's not like one or the other. It's usually between either, as I said, cost or resources. So I'll start with, again, I'll switch between two environments just to show you the different interfaces. Maybe I'll go with cost on the projects. So, sorry, cost on the Power Platform. So if I want to go and estimate the financial, the financial cost or the cost of a certain initiative, I go to maybe a financials tab right there, and then I create the new items. So I will probably create an item that, for example, the item could be labor costs, it could be material costs, it could be software or hardware or whatever. Right. So let me just say it is, I don't know, it's a kind of a software. Let's go with that. And the cost item, it can either be an asset or an app. What software usually is an asset, so I'll leave that as an asset. Labor, whether it's project management or other architects, developers, engineers, whatever you want, they are usually an output. But again, you can classify your cost the way you want. And then as I enter the cost item asset against my project, you will see that it will appear here, and I'll start forecasting the cost of this software. Right. So let's say in July, or maybe we'll start in October. My forecast that this software will cost me $1,000 a month in October and $1,000 in November. By the way, I can drag and do stuff like this and copy and paste, but I'm not going to do it. So this is the first thing. So I'm representing in this case that this project, for example, well, in this very simple example, will cost me $2,000. Now, obviously, this is a question that we answered before. Can I integrate my Microsoft project with my cost estimation? And the answer is yes. So if you rather do your cost estimation within Microsoft project, you know, by assigning tasks and doing calculations, then yes, you can open project inside Microsoft project. So that same project, I can't remember the name now. It is Auburn Stabling project. And I go, it will open in Microsoft project. As you can see, open stabling, and you can do your cost estimation based on building tasks and so on, and then that will be synced to your cost estimation table here. Now the same thing applies for resources, but I'm gonna quickly, maybe I will switch my resource estimation tool into the SharePoint or Project Online interface, but if you want to use the Power Platform, it'll be very similar to this experience. But let me choose a project in the SharePoint interface or Project Online, and maybe quickly show you how we can do resource estimation. So I want these resources against my project. As you can see, it will be a slightly different, experience from the user interface perspective in terms of compared to the Power Platform that we've done cost estimation in. But this is basically where you go and estimate the project. Oh, that is not working. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, let me try to find another project. So the idea here, while this is loading, that we represent the demand, this initiative. I call it the minus value, as in the consumption of this project. This is not working again. But the idea is that you will have resources assigned to the project, and you go, I need that many of account manager, that many of business analyst, that many of database administrator, and so on, and basically have an estimation of their full-time equivalent or hours that would be required against this project. And again, the answer, if for the question, can I do that in Microsoft Project, whether it's Project Desktop or Project on the web, and bring it here, then the answer is yes. You can open it in Microsoft Project, whether it's online or for the web or the desktop, and then after you've done your resource assignments, then that will represent will be summarized into your resource plan. So we have a table that represents the cost. We have a table that represents the resource requirement, and I can take those two and say this is the consumption, this is the demand that this initiative will take if should we approve it. So obviously now the next thing in terms of this thinking, any kind of business case justification goes, okay, well, we're going to consume, well, in my case, $2,000, and let's say 4 people to do this initiative. What are you going to give me in return? What's the strategic value that you're going to give me? What's the plus of the equation? So this is where the ranking kicks in. So how do I rank a project or initiative against the strategic drivers? And again, I'll use the SharePoint interface for that. And within the project itself, so I'm inside this project called Border Railway Project. And as you can see, I can see a list of my strategic objectives. Now, the list itself can be dynamic in terms of how it exposes itself to the user. So if you are someone coming from the HR department, the IT department, the engineering department, the design, whatever, it depends on your organizational structure, then the strategic objectives might be only the one that are relevant to you. And it could be different from people coming from other business units. So we can target the user who's logged into the system with the right strategic objectives and pillars. So once I got the list here, I can then, as a BA, as a business analyst, or as a project manager, whatever the role might be, I can then start doing this assessment that I think my initiative called Border Railway Project has either a low, moderate, strong, extreme, or no impact on the strategic driver. As a customer, I can view all my services online. So this is more for IT projects. If I go and, for example, look at this one, decrease safety incidents to less than 10 per year. And again, I think my project will have either low, moderate, strong, or extreme impact. Now, this is, if you'd like, on the level 3 or 4 maturity scale of PPM, not PPM as a solution, but project portfolio management competency in the organization. If you would like to take it all the way to level 5, and that's according to Gartner, you need actually to link it to benefits. So it's not enough to say, I think my initiative has a strong impact on this strategic driver. You have to then link this relationship, if you'd like, with a set of benefits that then can be given to an owner, and that owner can measure the benefits that you're promising from the project. So in the business case, we're claiming that we have a strong impact on a certain strategic objective. Then we back it up by saying, here's the list of benefits that I'm going to show you, measurable benefits that I'm going to show you to back up my claim. So after the project is closed and delivered its deliverables, the benefits owner can measure those claims, and if they do align to the promised values, then that means the claim was achieved. And it is a very interesting exercise to look at the statistics and the data. Organizations who are within the 30 to 50% of their realizing their benefits are considered on the top 10% of organization worldwide. So it's a very interesting statistics there. Right, so we presented the plus, which is the strategic value that I'm showing here in my ranking page. Represented the minus, or the consumption, which is the cost and the resource consumption that this initiative would require. And then I need to make sure that the balance is something that I would like to put forward as a proposed initiative. Now, how do I do that? So by itself, it might be approved by the person who's sponsoring it. So you go, okay, for $2,000 and these benefits, I would like this to be done. But that's not really the end of the story there. And that obviously can be done through, as I said, a governance workflow that the individual business case or concept is approved by the sponsor or whoever needs to approve it. But we take this for one step further. So the business case is approved, the sponsor has approved it. Yes, they want to spend the money to do this, but the organization itself, the portfolio itself, needs to be prioritized, because you might be competing for the money from another initiative that might be more strategically valuable to the organization than yours, or the output of it is more relevant at that given time to the organization. So how do we go about doing that? So look, there's a number of things, but let me just show you first a very simple way of doing it, and then we'll get to the prioritization. The first one is really as simple as, well, according to this impact statements that I have in my sheet, I create what's so-called a strategic value. And let me just spend a couple of minutes on explaining how a strategic value works. It is basically the rank. So if we go from 0 as a not related into 1, 2, 3, 4, let's go with that, very simple. 0 to 4 is the impact numbers value, and then the strategic driver itself will have its own value of 100, let's say. So this is 10%, this is 30%, and so on. By multiplying the rating by the strategic value of the objective and then summing up the impact for a certain initiative, we get what's so-called a strategic value for the initiative. So let me show you. This is again another client who uses this for prioritization. We can then start looking at all of the projects or the initiatives that has been approved individually by the sponsor or the people who are supposed to approve them. But as a collection, we don't know which one to select as an organization. Now, the way that we do it, you can do it as simple as prioritization. So basically you go, all right, well, the score for this initiative is that number. And you go, obviously, we're sorting it based on the initiative value. And then you go all the way to initiatives that have 0. Obviously, that's quite extreme, but just to show to explain the concept here. And then it's literally you go start and select from the top. You know, you go, well, this is very strategically important for us, so we'll select this initiative. And then we go down, and we go, well, this one is not selected, and so on. So a very simple Excel alike thinking, I should say, to prioritize only the initiative based on the score. And then you can put them into different stages and so on. You can click on a certain initiative and see the details. But that's, if you would like, the basic prioritization process using the score itself. If we want to go a bit more advanced, and I'm switching here to Project Online and its portfolio analysis functionality. That one, I prepared one. So let's say that that we're doing this portfolio analysis, prioritization, and/or optimization every quarter or every year or every month, right? So we have this pipeline of initiatives, and we go, okay, based on the score, again, the same score that I've showed you earlier, here's a list of prioritized initiatives. But we don't stop there. We don't stop at the prioritized list of initiatives. We start applying the constraint that we talked about, the 2 constraints. First of all, let's talk about the constraint of cost. So if we apply the constraint of cost, you will see that the total money required to approve or select all the initiatives in my portfolio is, in this example, $1.9 million, right? Almost $2 million. Now, let's say for that period of time, the quarter, the month, the year, we don't have the 2 million. We have 1.5 million, for example. So how do I go about selecting initiative that will fit in within the constraint of 1.5 million? You can go from the top and say, okay, well, that's easy. Like we've done in the first one, by priority, select the first one, second one, third one, until you exhaust, until you reach to that limit of your constraint of $1.5 million. But that's not the optimal selection. There's a mathematical calculation called efficient frontier. In fact, it's available in Excel as well, that you can use to produce the optimal selection. And let me explain this in the very basic way, the way I understand it. So, for example, if this initiative, the same border railway project, is giving us 15.44% of the total strategic value of my portfolio, cost us 186. Whilst there's another 2 initiatives that are lower in the strategic value, but also lower in their cost. For example, very simple example here, the 8.35% strategic value that the field help desk border project is giving us for $0. I know it's extreme, but just to make it an example here. If we go from top to bottom, selecting initiatives, we will definitely select the border railway because it's sitting at 15.4 compared to the 8.35. So, and that will consume $186,000 of my constraint of 1.5 million. Therefore, this will not see its the project or the initiative field help desk portal will not be selected in this portfolio. So the optimal selection or the efficient frontier basically give us the best combination of initiatives to give us the maximum strategic output within the constraint that we give to the system. And that's something we can do by just feeding Project Online the $1,500,000 or the 1.5 million, and ask it to recalculate based on the efficient frontier calculations. Which project should I use and which project should I not approve? And as you can see here, these projects been kicked out, and these are the ones that have been selected for 1.5. There is no other selection that will give us the 95% of our strategic value for 1.5 million. In fact, it's for 1.129 million. We can't spend more than that. With that, we can get the maximum. If we select any of those, we'll go over the 1.5 million. And you can force things in and say, look, this has to be in and this has to be out. And you can literally force things in and out of the portfolio to do other scenarios for calculation. And then you can present those scenarios to the decision makers, and they can make their own decision in terms of which scenario is the more appropriate one to their business. Maybe stretch the budget a bit, maybe force in some projects and force out some projects and so on. So I have a number of scenarios here, and we can present that using the efficient frontier scenario to the decision makers to make their decision. The next one, if I go with my baseline scenario, is then to apply the other constraint, which is resources. So if I go analyze resources, if let's say I have the 2 million, 1.9 million, do I have enough resources to do the work? Let me just go to my baseline again. And the system goes, no, you don't have enough resources to do the work, and not enough engineers, project managers, business analysts, developers, architects, and so on. And we actually have 2 that are not selected in here in this scenario. Now, if we want to know why don't we have enough resources to do the work? I can switch our view from the Gantt chart to what's so-called requirement details. And that requirement details will then show me where is the shortage of supply of resources, right here. So this project called the distribution system integration, as I can see, I have reds here and reds here. I don't have enough developers, senior developers on these months. And then I don't have enough infrastructure specialists in this month, and so on. So basically now we moved away from the constraints of money to the constraints of resources. Now, when we are faced with the constraint of resources, what do? Well, we either, if I go back to my Gantt chart, we either start shifting the starting dates of our projects. So instead of starting on this date, we shift to start later to fit it within a gap in the heat map of my resources, or hire people, add resources. Now there's obviously a debate of hiring resources. Does that mean increasing cost or not? I'll leave that aside. But there you go. What if we hire 5 people? What happens? And you run those scenarios. It's like we are increasing cost and playing scenarios. So by hiring 5 people, I was able to push one of those projects into my selected portfolio of selected initiative. And now, in fact, I can run a report to show what is the resource required. So it's a business analyst who would need to work from this date to that date, and will cost us that much money. And that's the number of based on this rate. So that's basically the other side of the prioritization optimization, is applying the constraint of resource availability. And these are the 2 most popular or most I guess use case scenarios in terms of optimization, prioritization against available budget and against available resources. Now you can introduce other things, such as the risk profile that we introduce to the organization by approving these projects. the change is becoming increasingly more required to be considered when we approve initiatives. The amount of change on the organization and the change management required with it and so on. So the amount of change that will be introduced with this selection of initiatives, but not this. So then you can start up thinking and applying same concepts: efficient frontier, prioritization, optimization, demand versus supply, into different parameters. And those analytics can be easily built into a PMO 365 solution for you. And then to drive a good decision-making process, rather relying on Excel sheet with just a simple list of prioritized item with its score. So that's really it in terms of the demonstration presentation of doing the right projects. I hope that it was useful and insightful in terms of how we can achieve that via Microsoft and Microsoft PMO 365. Right. So look, I'm going to look at the questions. There are no questions, I believe. Yep, no questions apart from one question about the connection, and has been approved. Look, thanks for attending today's webinar. Hopefully it was something that you found useful. As always, if you are interested in learning more, or interested in PMO 365 as a solution platform or an offering, please feel free to reach out to us directly via the website pmo365.com or .com.au if you're from Australia. Fill out a form, contact the people who are organized today's events, Lisa Lee from EPM Partners, and let us know what you have in mind in terms of questions or any opportunities that you might have for us for demonstrating, trialing, or in fact implementing PMO 365. With that said, I would like to thank everyone who attended today and wish you a very good day.